Hello, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Night Fright. I hope you're doing well, and if you're ready to get a little uncomfortable tonight, you're in the right place. Go ahead, turn off the lights, put on one earbud, and settle in. This story was sent to me by Derek. He says it happened during a winter trip up north, and he hasn't spoken about it until now. But the moment you hear what he saw, you'll understand why. Hey, my name's Derek. I've always liked being alone. Especially after my divorce. I needed space. Quiet, no distractions. That's why, a few years ago, I booked a remote cabin way up near Tupper Lake in upstate New York. It was supposed to be peaceful, just snow, trees, and me. I was wrong. The cabin was small, old, but clean. It sat just 50 yards from the edge of a wide, frozen lake. Everything around it was covered in thick snow. Christina, my girlfriend at the time, had come with me. She liked snowshoeing and reading by the fire, so it seemed perfect for both of us. But on the second night, we found something odd. A wooden box was left outside our front door. No one had knocked. No tracks in the snow. Inside the box were 7 matches. Thick, handmade, with red wax tips, and a folded piece of paper that said, "Do not look at her face." That's it. No name, no logo, just those words. We figured it was some creepy tourist prank. Maybe the owner left it as a weird local joke. Christina laughed and set the box on the mantel. I remember her saying, "What are we supposed to do? Summon a snow demon?" But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, I had trouble sleeping. Around 1:30 a.m., I got up, walked to the big front window, and stared out across the lake. And that's when I saw her. She was standing out on the frozen lake, maybe 40 yards from the shore. She wore a thick coat made of some kind of fur, long, flowing, heavy-looking. Her back was turned toward me, but a single braid hung down past her waist, and beside her was an old snowmobile. It was running. I could see the exhaust drifting out the back, curling into the moonlight. At first, I thought she was just stranded. Maybe she got lost or broke down on the ice. But then, she slowly turned her head. Not all the way, just enough to let me see part of her face. And that's when I felt it, a pressure in my chest. Like something invisible was pushing me away from the glass. Her face didn't look right, not just pale, more like wax. Her eyes were too large. Her mouth was moving, but she wasn't saying anything. And yet, I heard it. Not with my ears, in my head. You took the matches. I stumbled back from the window, heart pounding. I didn't even remember picking them up, but somehow I knew what she meant. I ran into the bedroom and shook Christina awake. "There's someone out there," I whispered. "On the lake. I think she's watching the house." We got dressed and stepped onto the porch. The snowmobile was still out there. The woman hadn't moved, but now her head was tilted up, like she was smelling the air. Then, I swear, she started floating. Not flying, not levitating. It was more like she was gliding just above the surface of the ice, toward the cabin. I yelled for Christina to get inside. We slammed the door. I locked it. But the second it clicked, we heard something. A knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the back door, the one that faces the woods. We froze. We hadn't heard footsteps in the snow. No crunching, nothing, just the knocks. I went to the fireplace, grabbed the box of matches. My hands were shaking. One of them had a black tip instead of red. I struck it. The second the flame came to life, the knock stopped. The next morning, we searched the property. There were no tracks in the snow, not even from the snowmobile. Nothing at all. We were going to leave that day, but something kept me there. Curiosity, maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to understand what we had seen. That afternoon, I went back to the edge of the lake alone. The wind had picked up again. The sky was gray. I looked down and saw something half buried in the snow. It was a strip of cloth, fur-lined, torn, soaked in something dark, and beneath it, the corner of a book. I dug it out. It was a leather-bound journal, old, frozen stiff. The first page was dry enough to read. It said, "She comes when the ice holds secrets. She marks the ones who see her. You cannot kill her. You can only delay her with flame." The rest was unreadable, water damaged, but one part, scrawled in the margins, stuck with me. Never speak her name. Never see her face. We left that night. I haven't been back since. Sometimes I wonder if it was just a hallucination, a dream. But deep down I know better. I've seen her. And I broke the rule. I looked at her face. And every year, when the snow falls heavy and the lakes freeze over, I wonder, will she come for me? Not right away. Witches are patient. This story was sent to me by a woman named Rachel. She swears it really happened during a late shift she pulled just last winter in a hospital that doesn't exist on any map. My name's Rachel. I used to work as a traveling nurse. Nothing unusual, really. You go wherever they need you, short-term contracts, decent money. That winter, I was assigned to a long-term care facility on the outskirts of Oregon. Quiet place. One road in, surrounded by pine trees and snow. The facility had this strange design, more like a converted hotel than a hospital. Long hallways, bad lighting, and an ancient elevator at the far end that barely worked. It rattled every time it moved, like it was coughing up dust from the 1950s. One night, I was on the third floor checking vitals when the intercom made this weird static burst, then silence. I walked over to the nurse's station and asked if anyone else heard it. They hadn't. Figured maybe the old speakers were glitching out again. I finished my rounds and headed back down to the lobby to grab some coffee. The elevator doors opened on their own, which wasn't that strange. They did that sometimes. But when I stepped inside, the panel was completely dark. No buttons lit up. No floor indicators, just black. Still, the doors closed, and it started moving. I pressed the button for the first floor, but it didn't respond. Instead, the elevator kept going down, past the lobby, past the basement, past anything I even knew existed. And then it stopped. When the doors opened, it was pitch dark outside. Not just dim, I mean total absence of light. No overheads, no emergency exit signs, nothing. And yet, I could see. Somehow, there was this faint blue glow leaking from behind the walls, and this humming sound like metal being dragged across concrete in the distance. I stepped out, just 1 foot. That's when I noticed the floor wasn't tile anymore. It was dirt. Damp, soft soil, like I'd stepped out into the woods. But I was still inside the elevator. Then I saw her. A woman in a patient gown stood at the end of the hallway. She was facing the wall, her bare feet black with mud. Slowly, she turned her head, not her body, just her head, all the way around, until her face was almost upside down. I slammed my hand on the close door button, over and over. Nothing. She began walking toward me, not fast, but steady. Her joints didn't move right, like her bones were too loose inside her skin. I screamed, not proud of it, but I screamed and pressed the emergency alarm. Suddenly, everything snapped back. The elevator lit up, alarms blaring, and I was on the first floor. There was no underground floor. There never had been. Maintenance said it was impossible, that the elevator couldn't go below the basement, and even that was sealed off years ago. But I remember what I saw. And worse. Sometimes when I take elevators now, I still hear the hum, that same dragging metal sound coming from deep below. Like that place is still waiting for me to come back. This story was sent to me by a guy named Thomas. He was just trying to help a woman stuck out in the snow. But what he picked up wasn't human. My name's Thomas. This happened in January, right after a bad snowstorm rolled through northern Michigan. I work search and rescue with the local sheriff's department, so when someone calls in a stranded vehicle, I'm usually the guy they send out. This call came in just before midnight. A snowmobiler had reported seeing a woman waving frantically near a half-buried sedan on an old access road through Bear Hollow Ridge. That stretch is isolated, no lights, no signal, not even maintained in winter. But dispatch said someone might be stuck, so I went. I loaded up the tracked rig, got bundled up, and headed out. The wind was brutal. Snow drifts high enough to hide fences. I had to keep checking my GPS because the road itself was practically invisible. But then I saw her. She was standing beside the car, just like the caller said, tall, thin, wearing a long coat with fur around the hood. She didn't wave when I stopped, didn't even turn. I called out, "Ma'am, you all right?" She turned slowly, her face. Something about it was wrong. Not disfigured or anything. It was just too perfect. Symmetrical in a way people aren't. And her eyes, they were dark, like staring into a tunnel. Still, I kept it together. Asked her if she was injured. She said no, her voice soft and clear, like wind through pine needles. Said her car slid off, and she'd been waiting. I told her I'd give her a lift to the station. She nodded, stepped up into the passenger seat of my rig, and that's when it hit me. No footprints. ID made tracks all the way from the road, but there were no prints behind her. Nothing leading to or from the car. I looked back at her. She was smiling. We rode in silence for a while. I tried to radio in, but the signal was gone, which made no sense. We were well within range. I glanced at the GPS. Blank screen. That's when she spoke again. "You shouldn't have come alone." I froze. "What?" Her smile widened. Then I noticed her reflection in the windshield didn't match her movements. She was still, but in the glass, she was turning her head toward me, slowly. I hit the brakes. Hard. She didn't budge. Just kept staring at me with those black eyes. Then she said something in a language I've never heard, and the engine died. The snow outside stopped falling. Everything went silent. I looked around. We were surrounded by trees that shouldn't have been there, twisted, leafless things with bark like burned skin. I don't know how to explain it, but I swear the world had changed. I reached for my flashlight, but when I turned it on, she was gone. Just gone. Passenger seat empty. Door never opened. No sign of her in the snow. The engine roared back to life on its own. My GPS blinked. The radio crackled. Dispatch came through like nothing had happened. I drove straight back, didn't say a word. When I returned, the sheriff asked what took so long, said the whole trip should have been 40 minutes. I'd been gone nearly 3 hours. They checked the area. No sedan, no footprints, no sign of anyone. But the next morning, I found something strange on my windshield. Pressed against the glass from the inside were 5 blackened fingerprints. My name's Kevin, and this happened when I was 20. My best friend James comes from one of those absurdly rich families, like private jet kind of rich. His dad's some kind of IP lawyer who contracts with the government or something, and they've got properties scattered all over the country, and even a few overseas. One of those properties is a gorgeous lake house on a large, secluded lake, not remote exactly, but just far enough out that most of the homes around the shoreline are dark and quiet for most of the year. The lake itself isn't huge, but it's definitely big enough that swimming across would be a terrible idea unless you're some kind of athlete. It's the kind of place that makes you feel totally removed from the rest of the world. We spent a lot of weekends there, mostly summer break, but sometimes we'd sneak out there in the spring too. James' parents were barely ever around, so it basically became our own private hangout. He'd throw these insane parties out there sometimes, but the night this happened, it was just the two of us. I had just broken up with my girlfriend of 3 years, and to be honest, I was feeling like complete garbage. James invited me out there for the weekend, said we'd chill, have some beers, maybe fish a little, just whatever I needed. And at first, that's exactly what it was. We were sitting out on the dock late at night, maybe close to midnight, when I noticed this blinking light coming from across the lake. At first, I thought it was just sunlight reflecting off something, but then I realized the sun was long gone. Even when I moved my head, the light was still blinking. Repetitive, rhythmic flashes, like someone was deliberately turning it on and off. I pointed it out to James, and we both stared at it for a bit. Eventually, he muttered something that made my stomach drop. "Dude, that's Morse code? SOS. I laughed it off at first, told him he was watching too many movies, but I pulled out my phone and checked. He was right. 3 short flashes, 3 long ones, then 3 short again. SOS. I didn't know Morse code, but somehow he did. We both sat there staring across the water, completely still. The flashing kept going for about a minute, then just stopped. No fade, no flicker. Just stopped. I remember saying something like, "Well, crap, now what?" James immediately said we should call the cops, but I reminded him we'd been drinking underage, and I was already fighting a DUI charge. The last thing I needed was more trouble. Eventually, we decided to go check it out ourselves. I know, dumbest idea ever, but we weren't thinking straight. We grabbed a couple of switchblades from James' brother's room. Don't ask, dragged James' dad's old kayak to the edge of the lake and shoved off into the dark water. The deeper we got into the lake, the more serious it started to feel. The excitement faded fast and got replaced with that sinking gut feeling that you made a huge mistake, but you're too far in to turn back. We didn't talk much as we paddled, just the sound of the water and the occasional creak of the kayak. When we reached the other side, the house with the flashing light came into full view. It was huge, like all the other ones, but this one was different, neglected, almost sunken into itself. The dock was half collapsed, just crumbling into the water, and the yard was a mess. No lights now, no movement. We couldn't tie off to the dock, so we dragged the kayak onto the muddy shore. James was freaking out a little by then, whispering that we should just go back and forget it. But I was too stubborn. I reminded him we'd explored tons of sketchy buildings before. "This is no different," I said. Famous last words. We crept around the house until we found a window that was already cracked open. Slipped inside. Total silence. The place was stripped clean. No furniture, no trash, no signs anyone had ever lived there. It was too clean. Not like someone moved out. Like it had been cleared out intentionally. We made our way upstairs, searching for the room the light had come from. When we found it, I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. I pushed it open. The room was totally empty, except for a small object sitting in front of the window. A projector. Old school, film reel kind. And it was facing the window, the exact window we'd seen the light from. I didn't even have time to say anything before James bolted. I could hear his sneakers slapping the wood floors as he sprinted back down the stairs. My heart dropped into my stomach. I turned and followed, and as I did, I heard it. A door opening, not one of ours. Somewhere back in that hallway, something creaked open, then footsteps, fast ones, like someone big was running. We hit the window, dove through it, and sprinted toward the lake. That's when I realized the kayak was gone. James didn't even hesitate. He swore, yelled something I couldn't make out, and dove into the water fully clothed. Hoodie, shoes, everything. I was right behind him. I didn't think. I just jumped. The water was freezing. It felt like knives digging into my skin with every stroke, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. We swam across the entire lake, fueled by nothing but pure fear and adrenaline. When we finally climbed onto James Dock, I was shaking so bad I couldn't even talk. We ran inside, locked every door and window, and called the police. It took them nearly an hour to show up. They weren't thrilled with us, and after checking out the house, they told us the same thing they always do in these stories, that the place had been abandoned for years. No footprints, no gear, no personal items, no one. Jane's parents were furious when they found out. I wasn't allowed back at the lake house after that, and honestly, I don't blame them. I still don't know what the hell we stumbled into that night. A trap? A prank? Or something else entirely? But I know one thing. Someone had been in that house, and they were watching us. I try not to think about what might have happened if we hadn't run when we did. Let me know in the comments what you think it was. And remember, if you ever see an SOS light blinking from across a lake, maybe just call the police. Don't be us. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more real horror stories. I'll see you in the next one, right here on Night Fright.